Hi, I'm Nicholas McGurr, author of The Afterlife and host for Stories in a Cemetery. You can find all my fiction works with themes of the afterlife on nicholasmcgurr.com. That's NicholasMcGirr.com. As a writer, I do research, and that research is more than likely inside a haunted location or a cemetery. Like you, I'm curious about the afterlife, and always looking for a new topic for my next book. I hope you enjoy this episode of my research as much as I did in using it for my fiction works. Let's get into today's story in the cemetery. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 36 of Stories in a Cemetery. I don't know if I want to apologize for such a long break, but it has been one heck of a summer. First off, I had poison oak from doing an investigation and a location that was obviously somewhat in the woods. That was the Francis Marion burial site. I had that for a few weeks, and then I ended up getting sun poisoning. Obviously, I live close to the beaches and took a day at the beach, which I only do about once a year, and ended up with sun poisoning. And shortly after that, I ended up with food poisoning. So you can just say that I was poisoned with poison oak, sun poisoning, and food poisoning pretty much the entire summer. And the food poisoning bit, you would think would pass within a few days, but with COVID-19 and everything going around, I actually had to wait several weeks for a COVID test to come back negative before they would actually treat the food poisoning, which was some weird type of food poisoning that normally would last for 4 to 6 weeks on its own. But I ended up with this awful food poisoning for almost 2 months, literally either throwing up, or not that you guys want to hear all of this, but it was nasty. And I just want to apologize. So I technically did kind of take the summer off on you, but we're back. We have some really cool stuff coming up, and I did happen to take a vacation, and as you know, my vacations aren't exactly normal. I don't, always go to Disney World or Universal or any other major vacation spot because I live in one right here in Charleston, South Carolina. So where did I go? I actually hit up several paranormal spots and maybe some new spots that haven't been deemed haunted or anything like that yet. But I did happen to go to Gettysburg, and I may turn that actually into a 2 to 3 part episode series where I talk about Little Big Top, I talk about Devil's Den, and I also got a chance to visit the Jenny Wade house. I also went to a place called Falling Waters, which is a Frank Lloyd Wright house built for the Kaufman family. And if you don't know anything about Frank Lloyd Wright, and I'll be honest, I don't as of yet. Of course, I haven't done all the research yet, but Frank Lloyd Wright is an architect and apparently has homes all over the place. This home was really interesting because it actually had a creek running right through the house and had absolutely no air conditioning. I know, sounds completely weird, but once you see the pictures of this place and the location of it, you'll see why I wanted to go visit. Just even if there is no activity there, the sheer beauty of this place is absolutely stunning. Again, I talked about the Jenny Wade house. That was an interesting venture, but the episode that I'm going to be putting out next week, and I wanted to visit this place for a long time. My wife told me about it. She's originally from the Pittsburgh area and was living in that area of Shanksville, Pennsylvania during the 9/11 attacks. We had the opportunity and honor to visit the Flight 93 Memorial, and I really don't have words for you at this point as far as how this place made me feel, the demeanor in this location, and the research that I'm doing. It's more than emotional, and I think this one really hits home because most of you listening are probably already thinking, just from the mention of the 9/11 attacks, of where you were during those attacks and how you felt and what your neighborhood and communities look like. I will be launching the Flight 93 Memorial investigation that I did on 9/11. As you know, I normally release episodes on Friday, and 9/11 just happens to fall on a Friday this year. It would obviously be the 19th anniversary since the attacks. Again, cannot tell you how emotional this has all been. Watching films, watching the newscasts all over again, reading books directly at the Flight 93 memorial, or actually, the Flight 93 crash, and everything that went into detail, the planning that went into the attacks, the folks that we lost on the plane, all of their stories. Again, cannot wait to release, and hopefully I can make this a 1-hour episode. I believe with the amount of data that I have just on the history alone, this should be well worth the hour to listen to on 9/11. Since Charleston opened up tours, I've actually been very busy with Stories in the Cemetery tours. Unfortunately, I did have to cancel about 4 weeks worth of tours during my food poisoning bit, but I trudged through with the sun poisoning. So my ankles were swollen and blistering, and I did my ghost tours for you folks, and I will do it again because we actually got some really great stuff. I've added quite a few gadgets during my time off. I did a lot of research while I was sick through most of the summer, and was able to I can accommodate up to 10 people for my ghost hunting tours now. And now that we're breaking into fall, the tours are now at 7 and 9 o'clock, 6 nights a week. That's Tuesday through Sunday. I take Mondays off, and that's super exciting for me. It's a little harder on getting all the evidence together the next morning, but again, when you love what you do, like what I do, those little, I guess, quirks that get in the way don't really matter, because it's all about the ghost hunts and having fun with you guys and teaching you the ways of ghost hunting and showing you what they don't show you on the television shows. This isn't a YouTube channel, and this isn't being aired for anything other than your pleasure. You get all the data back, and there are so many more gadgets that record now, so you're going to get a full recording of the entire, it's an audio recording, so you're going to get a full audio recording of your entire tour and your ghost hunt. You're going to get the SBox recording, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and that is made by Ghost Stop, which this device is pretty amazing, guys. I can't wait to tell you about it. We now have a FLIR thermal imaging camera, which is really, really cool. So you get that full video, the full hour and a half to 2 hours of that entire video. You get a quick analysis of everything I find as a collective, and you get the digital Spirit Box word list with all the links to prove the validity of the things that we captured during your ghost hunt. Oh, and we added a digital camera just for funsies. So with that being said, my wife, as you know, does all of the graphic design work for the headers for this podcast. She's made the Stories in a Cemetery logo from scratch. She also is working on her photography degree and graphic design degree. So any photos that we capture that I can't immediately make the distinction of any kind of paranormal activity in the photographs, they go to her. And she will flat out debunk them right away, or she will say, I don't know what this is, and we then have a piece of evidence. So the cool thing is that you guys, even as listeners, can go and check this out. So if you head over to the Stories in a Cemetery Facebook page, obviously like the page, we always want more followers and more folks in the cemetery, but there are photo albums in there labeled by date, and then there is one evidence folder where the things that we find through the photographs are saved in one folder, so that way you guys can see them and kind of things that we're catching. So far we've caught some shadow people, some weird mysteries of light. There's a few things in there. It's not fully built up yet to where it's just pages and pages of photographs, but we do have that extra gadget now to where we can start capturing photos. And of course, you as a tour guest would actually have access to that. So guys, before we get into the super rad, super awesome little SBox ghost scanner, as they call it, we are going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. So I'm going to record this after I did the full episode, and I want to apologize because after I did everything, it was more of a, wow, I just talked about a gadget that maybe somebody has no idea what the technology is or even what a spirit box is. So today's gadget, the SBox, is considered a spirit box. So what exactly is that? A spirit box, think of it as a radio sweeper. If you are one to listen to police scans, you know that it's going to just literally, you have a manual control of how to sweep through the different stations to listen to the police scanners. And a spirit box, what it does is you can usually set it up to FM or AM frequencies to sweep all on its own at a set sweep rate. A sweep rate determines the speed of each type of sweeping that it's actually going to do. And what we're listening for are technically four different types of voices to come through. I use this as a question and answer type session where I could use it just as a regular audio recorder to do the exact same thing and kind of go back in real time to listen to real live audio. But a spirit box is in real time only most of the time. What this means is that you're listening for a radio DJ, a song lyric, commercial, or a disembodied voice to come through on a set sweep rate for a split second to give you 1 to maybe 3 to 5 words in one paused session. Now, what does that mean? So as it's sweeping through all the different radio stations, usually pretty quickly, if it pauses long enough for a DJ to come up with a word or that you can hear audibly and make out, then you are obviously meant to hear that. Some ghost investigators will actually set it to a very fast frequency to where it is skipping through all the radio stations very fast, so it doesn't allow the DJ, the song lyric, or a commercial to come through. They're only listening for disembodied voices that are going to come over top of the static, which is energy that a spirit can muster and use the radio frequency to speak back to us. Now, sometimes when we're hearing that DJ or song lyric, the word or words that come through are a direct communication. I tell my folks to use the spirit box and think of it as Bumblebee from Transformers. Bumblebee from Transformers, if you recall, actually used the radio to portray his thoughts. It's the easiest way to explain what a spirit box is and how it actually operates. It's going to flip through radio stations very quickly, a little slower, or very slow, so that I try not to go too slow because you don't want to get too much chatter coming through. You want just enough to be able to answer your questions or for a spirit to actually convey their message in their own way. Guys, that's what a spirit box is. Let's get into the rest of the details. And we're back, guys. Thanks so much for allowing me to put sponsors in the middle of the show. It definitely moves things along for Stories in the Cemetery. And you guys listening helped keep Stories in the Cemetery alive while I was sick, even though I did not have episodes. So thank you, dear devoted listeners. You are very well appreciated. So let's talk about this gadget. They call it the SBox, the Spirit Box Ghost Scanner. And this is a very compact device. So I'm going to talk about the aesthetics of it first, and just kind of give you an overview of the features, and we'll kind of go from there. Now, the first thing you should know is that it's pretty sleek. It is a shiny plastic, so if you are one to have sweaty palms when you're ghost hunting, I would not recommend this device. However, it does have like a softer plastic outer rim, so if you do drop it, which I don't think this device has been dropped yet, so kudos to my past ghost hunters that have come on the tour. And I'm going to talk a lot about why I use this specific gadget on the tour, because I did a lot of research on it and watched a lot of videos and found that it was going to be very useful. So first off, and I may make some comparisons to the SB7 Spirit Box, just because I do use one of those on the tours as well. Again, we accommodate 10 people for the tours. So the first thing is that it's rechargeable. So how cool is that? No more carrying extra batteries around, no checking the battery. As long as you have it charged overnight, and I don't even think it takes that long. I want to say maybe an hour and it's fully charged. That's a super cool feature, not to actually have to carry extra batteries. The speaker, let's talk about the speaker. So if you have an SB7, or you've seen the SB7 on, say, some of your ghost hunting television shows, they have this large attached or bulky attachment on the side of their SB7. With the SBox, the speaker is built right in, and it is super loud. It has a turnstile volume button, which makes it super easy to fine-tune the volume of what you're looking for. So if you're in an area where, for example, we actually have one area that we could spook horses during my tour. So I tell them just to keep it at an audible level, so that way they can actually hear it, but they're not going to spook horses. However, if you're in a very secluded area where there's nobody else around and you won't be spooking ponies, by all means, turn it up loud and proud and do what you do. Continue on with your investigation. There's a safety feature on here of an actual built-in flashlight, which actually works when the toggle switch isn't even on. I found this to be a very unique feature. However, it's not a very bright light, but sometimes when our spaces are very dark to begin with, any light will do, especially if we are trying to look at another device or if we are just trying to find our way through our locations. So the flashlight, super handy. Not necessary, but just shows that the care and concern that went into designing this gadget actually helps out quite a bit. Let's see here. It is recordable. When I say recordable, there are kind of a few rules that you have to learn before using the SBox. Now, it does take a micro SD card, so there's no internal memory, which is fine. I mean, there's a lot packed in this little gadget, so we all normally have a micro SD card lying around. I actually found 2 adapters that I need to use inside my desktop computer. But when I say recordable, it literally records your entire frequency sweep. Now, your frequency sweep, it's going to record that and just that only. So if you're asking questions, it's not going to record your voice. It's going to record just the sweep. Now, what I'll do with this gadget on the tours is I'll show somebody how to use it with the volume button, kind of explain what it is, because again, these are amateur ghost hunters, and I will tell them to just let it run. Don't hit any buttons. You just need to know where the volume button is. You don't need to speak into it because it's not going to hear you anyway. However, the cool thing about this is that even when the volume is down, all the way down to mute, where we can't hear it audibly, it is still recording your sweep at an even level. So when you go back to listen to your recording, you have, for us, it's a full 90 minutes to 2 hours of nothing but radio sweeps from that session. That is super cool, especially for my tours. Now the tours, again, I'll talk in between each location. I will give them the history of the hauntings that are in that location, so they obviously have to turn the volume down. With the volume down, we still have a frequency sweep, and we get to listen to that even though I was talking beforehand. So let's talk a little bit about my one pitfall for this device, and that has to do with some of the files and how those are handled. Now the files, when you plug in your SD card into your computer, it's going to give the file just a name of file 1234, and then it's going to go 1235, 1236. You're getting the gist of that here. So I do 2 tours a night. And let's say one of my ghost hunters is super unfamiliar with the toggle switch at the top of the gadget that turns it on and off, which is super nice, by the way. Let's talk about that for just a quick second. The on and off switch is an actual toggle, and it's away from the other buttons. So I don't know how many other times I went to a ghost hunt, I didn't have my SBox, I was using the SB7, and on the way home, because it was getting jostled around and moved around in my gig bag, that the SB7 would turn on by itself. Now, I could take that as an omen, but it usually only happens when I'm bouncing around in the car, I've thrown my bag in the car and got in, and I find that the SB7 is still on. The nice thing about the SBox is that the button is away from the other buttons, and it's at the very top of the gadget. So I did purchase they call it a Faraday wallet from ghoststop.com, and it is kind of a leathery pouch, and it's kind of stiff, which is good because it keeps the power button away from any rubbing, or moving from the wallet itself. So I highly recommend, if you do happen to pick up an SBox, get the wallet along with it, especially if you have a bag like I do filled with other devices and gizmos for your ghost hunts, because it does keep it in an off position. Now, with that said, when I take the micro SD card out of the gadget and I put it into the adapter, plug it into my computer, the file names are randomly named. So I have to rename the files so that way I know which one goes with which tour. Again, I'm doing 2 tours a night, so I have to keep the files straight. If an amateur ghost hunter accidentally hits that button, because it is next to the volume button, the only other button that they need to use, and the volume button is a turnstile, so all they need to do is kind of run their finger over it to turn it up and down. If they accidentally hit it too hard or move their finger slips or whatever and they hit the off button, they then have 2 files, because then I have to reset up the device to start recording again. So now they have 2 files, so that way we don't miss anything. I have to remember that during those tours where that actually happened for which specific tour, so I can name it accordingly. I normally name it with a date and the first names of the people that booked the tour, so that way I can keep them all straight. Now, I just went to Pennsylvania, as I told you at the top of the show, and visited multiple locations. I did anywhere between 2 to 3 locations per day while I was there. So I had to remember if there was any instance where I had to shut the machine off and turn it back on because we weren't inside yet, or it would have been too long of a recording, or so forth and so on. That is really my only downfall, because there is no timestamp on the file name. For example, when you look at your JPEGs taken from your phone and you upload them to your computer, it normally has a timestamp to it. Normally. Any other MP3, like say the audio for my tours, when I plug that into my desktop, it has a timestamp. That way there's no confusing where the audio needs to go. I don't always say the names of my guests on the audio, so I have to remember based on the time, if it starts at 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock, which tour it belongs to. Pretty simple. However, my only downfall, and this could be just a formatting problem for me, so if any of you have the SBox and you love it and you don't have trouble with the file names, by all means, tell me your tricks. I'm not ignorant to learning something new, as I'm sure y'all can tell. But really, that's my only downfall is going into the files themselves, and if I have multiple investigations in one day, and again, I'm not one to stay at a location for more than a few hours at best. So if I have a place where I visited and then I drove to the next location, I want to see the timestamp difference in between those, and so that I can determine which one went to which location. The only other issue, and it's not even really an issue, is that I have to compress that MP3 file from the micro SD card in order to upload it to the website for the tours. So that way when I send them the link, that large file will not take on my website. So I have to compress it down a little bit. It doesn't really lose quality because it's just frequency radio sweeps. But at the same token, it is one extra step I have to take. But it's well worth it for the guest, because at the end of the day, they're going to have a full audio of the radio sweeps. Now, that is all well and good. And all the little things that I told you about this gadget, but let me tell you how I used it when I was in Pennsylvania. I told you at the top of the show that some of these places didn't allow recordings of any kind, and especially in a place that's a memorial where there's literally dozens if not hundreds of people, like the Flight 93 memorial site. I'm not going to be walking around with a very loud staticky noise while people are trying to read and commemorate these people that we lost, which is what the memorial is for. So with the SBox being able to record at an even level, even when the volume turnstile is all the way down to mute for us in real time, it is still recording. So In essence, I literally turned it on, set it to record, kept the volume down, and slipped it into my pocket. And I was able to gather I think I was there for about 2.5 hours, reading and reading and reading. And I now have that full recording to review for next week's show. On top of, like, I did have a K2 EMF meter in my pocket and checked it from time to time. And I also had the FLIR thermal imaging camera running, but I'll talk about that on another episode, the way I had that set up. And I'll probably have to talk about it on next week's show, just because I also have the full video from when I was at the memorial as well. But with the SBox, it's literally turn it on, throw it in your pocket, review it later. What's great about that is now you can take pictures, you can use your K2 in one hand and keep an eye on it because it doesn't make any noise. Run your cameras, your hands are free. That's what's so great about this. That, to me, is probably one of the best features of the SBox Ghost Scanner, is the fact that it can be hands-free if you wish to use it that way. On the blog post, I actually posted the overview of features video straight from Ghost Stop. And that way you guys can actually see what some of these features do. It goes over some of the buttons. It goes over the frequency, sweep rates, and that's the speed of everything, of how fast it will scan through. And what's so great about that video is that the person demonstrating understands that not everybody investigates the same way. I've talked to other ghost hunters and people that use this type of equipment that use spirit boxes in a very quick sweep rate, which means there is no chance for a radio DJ or a song lyric or a commercial to come through. They literally want the disembodied voices only. However, with my tours, I do keep it at a medium rate just so that some of those things can come through. And they have proven to be valid evidence. So if a DJ comes through and says a specific word and it's an answer to a question that we've been asking for several minutes, then I know that we were meant to hear it. I tell my folks to think of a spirit box as kind of Bumblebee from Transformers, the movie. If you remember, Bumblebee spoke through the radio. He used radio voices to tell us what he was trying to portray. That's exactly how I use the spirit boxes on my tours. Guys, I'm going to wrap up today's show with check out Ghost Stop's amazing little device called the SBox. There are links on the blog post for this, so you can go directly to it and check out ghoststop.com. They are a ghost hunting equipment online store, and they have a physical store. I believe it's in Florida. I want to say St. Augustine, if I'm not mistaken. I have several of their devices that they've designed. They're great devices. They do quality work. I'm using this gadget almost daily, and it has shown no wear and tear, and I've had it for several months. I want to say I've been using this even before I got sick with my food poisoning. So I've literally probably got maybe 100 hours in with this guy already, and it shows no sign of letting down. The battery charge is great, the discreetness of it is fantastic, and the recordings are a major feature. You cannot record with the SB7 without a separate audio recorder. This is built in, and you can hear the speaker. My only downfall is the files. And again, that could be my own little quirk. Who knows? If you got a trick, tell me. Guys, if you're looking to come to Charleston, I'd love to take you ghost hunting and show you some of the hauntings in the downtown area. This is set up for 10 people. Either go to the website, nicholasmcgurr.com, or check out charlestoncavaliertours.com. Book your tickets. Shoot me a message on Facebook. Ask me as many questions as you want. Follow us on Facebook so you find out more specific dates. I post weekly, sometimes daily, how many tickets I have left for each week, because tickets sell very quickly. This is not a typical ghost tour. This is not me walking around telling you stories while you're wearing a mask and just listening. You have to interact. You have to tell me what's going on with your gadget. I can't hold all 10 gadgets. It's pretty simple. I need you as part of my team. Help me collect enough data to prove that Charleston is truly haunted. And with that, guys, I will see you next week when we talk about the Flight 93 Memorial on 9/11. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much for listening to today's Story in a Cemetery. Be sure to check out the show notes with pictures and bonus audio sections on nicholasmcgurr.com. As you know, I'm a writer, and now you have another story that inspires me to write my fiction works. Be sure to share this episode on your social media or leave me comments on the Stories in a Cemetery Facebook page. I'll see you next time with another Story in the Cemetery.